know, it's crazy, baby, bro. Like I watched Married with Children. In my mind, I still see it like, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. Like it's caught up with the times. I mean, just like the footage and the picture of it. It's the best taco. I think you said you had a fish taco, shrimp taco. I forgot you had like 3 tacos.
Yeah, I had 3 little tacos. It was two.
Man, shout out to Beacon of Light, man, for that intro. I told you, Holmes, I was gonna insert it. It just gotta give me some time. But gracias so much to Beacon of Light. First of all, I don't know what I should. Okay, hey, what's up, familia? Hope you guys are doing good. Keeping between the lines. Got your load secure. Welcome inside the hotel room. The lighting is not good. The main light is out. Only the hallway light and these little lights are working. So the Spencer. That's why it's all dark up in here, man. I got the TV on too, so maybe a little bit more lighting. The Drunk Investor on title for a live, but I'm here for it. Well, check this out. The Drunk Investor. I don't know if you know, but every single month of this year, we are covering child molestation. So that's what we're doing. So for this is the one for this month. That's why it's Child Molestation Month 10, right? Is the 10th month. So that's what we're doing, man. I know it can get a little uncomfortable talking about these things, but hey, Holmes, we're covering it because it is a thing that happens. It happened to me, and it happened to my guest, a returning guest, my brother, man, out in Phoenix from Heart of Life, man. I'm talking about one, Mr. Pastor Tony.
Yeah, man. We try to make it a family molestation month. Got the popcorn and everything going. Then that wasn't a good idea. But anyway, no, seriously, man. How awkward. The only way it's not going to be awkward is if brothers like you, sisters like you, bring it out, because it's taboo. Because there's been, this is biblical stuff, man. This type of stuff been going on since Bible times. And you know what's crazy? They don't even talk about it, even though it's in the Bible. They don't even want to talk about it, even though it's like it's in there. I mean, Pastor David spoke on it a couple of weeks ago, but it was just like it wasn't the main focus. And there's a lot of stuff in there in the Bible about.
You know what? I do want to get to that. I definitely want to touch on that. For those that don't know, Tony was on here and he shared his story on when he was sexually molested as a child. I will leave the link to that interview in the comment section once we're done here. If you guys are watching this live, if you're not watching it live, then it should already be there. Shout outs to Max Forrest, the Drunk Investor, Artie Familia. What's going on? Mi hermana in here, one Miss Jen Magaña, Maro Pinche Know It All is up in here, dog. El Jesus. We're doing it, man. All right, so man, okay, Tony, this is the second time I've had you on here again. To everybody just coming in, the Spencer about the lighting. The lights are not working in here, man. It's just the hallway light coming into the room and these little little reader lights, I guess. Those are the only lights that are working. So, hey, we'll make it happen. What's going on, Chavez? Let me see. Always have to write some letters for public comment. Arato. All right, man. Much love to you, model. Heart Life. That's right, man. Hey, first of all, Tony.
Yeah.
What jersey are you wearing there, Holmes?
Take a wild guess. What? I'm only a fan when they win. I'm not a diehard.
Okay. How long you been living out in Arizona?
1990. I came down from the Bay Area, man, from Richmond, California. Originally born in Richmond, California. Well, shout out to my tia, Gloria. She passed away a couple hours ago from cancer, a real one. And shout out to my cousin Edward, Lorraine, and Karina, man. They lost their mom today, and it's one of the good cousins, man. One of the good tias. So yeah, from the Bay Area, Richmond, and came down here in 1990 on the hottest day in Phoenix, Arizona, 122. You know, the old adage, man. I forget that guy, man. The old guy with the beard and the white hair is a comedian. He's like the first comedian. He said
George
that,
Carlin.
huh?
George Carlin.
Nah, older than that. He
Don
was like,
Rickles.
God, no, man. This guy was sailing on ships before cars, bro. But anyway, he said that's why he's a first comedian. He said that the coldest winter he ever experienced was the summer in San Francisco. I'll say that again. The coldest winter he ever experienced was a summer in San Francisco. So, so I'm coming from that, flying into Phoenix, thinking it's cold. I got a big old warm jacket, and I get off the airplane. They're like, "Hey, today's the hottest day in Phoenix, Arizona, 122 degrees." I was 14 years old, and by God's grace, I made it through, man. I haven't gone back. Though I've gone back to California many times, but Phoenix, Arizona, man, they sold me, man. I was sold. Compared to Richmond. God bless Richmond, California, but I was sold on Phoenix, man. I was like, wow, this is home, and I haven't never looked back, man. Never wanted to go back, but at the same time, there's some real ones out of Richmond. You got to be tough as nails to be from Richmond. You got to be special. Those are Navy SEALs, Black Hawk Down people in Richmond, man. So people in Oakland don't go to Richmond. Like, oh no, I've seen them. Like, man, I ain't gonna go over that Richmond. Like, what? You're from Oakland, man. I know, but you know what I'm talking about. You guys got your spots over there in Southern California where they're just, I think Ice Cube said it. Compton, what are you doing in Compton? You're like, that's kind of how they say in the Bay Area about Richmond. What are you doing going to Richmond, man? There's something wrong with you. So that's where I was born, man. But by God's grace, I made it out of there alive. And yeah, I'm just grateful to be here. Cholo, thanks for bringing it up, man. This right here, my goal, my prayer is that people will continue to get some healing, to be able to move forward, to stop being a victim, because we were a victim, but we don't got to be a victim the rest of our lives. We can overcome that. We could set up a standard for our future kids, man, our future children. That's what this is about, for us to continue to heal, to recognize the patterns and maybe part of our brain that didn't develop correctly because we got triggered off at a young age, stuff like that, man. That's what I'm hoping to be part of that, man. So, if I could help someone, like folks don't like to focus on the negative. But this ain't negative if your goal is to bring a positive out of it. You know what I mean? So we just sweep it under the rug. And and I'm like, I'm Mr. Don't sweep anything under the rug. You know what I mean? Even my own stuff. I got into trouble so many times for trying to avoid sweeping things under the rug. And what I learned is that some people are just not ready, man. Some people just they're not ready to be free, man, to go another level of freedom. My relationship with my wife is a whole lot better because I've dealt with these things. They probably would have been kind of weird. I'd probably be having like straps hanging from the ceiling because I'm always trying to find ways to achieve my sexual goals. I'm like still like living on all this pain in me from my childhood. But now because yeah. Well, you gonna say something?
I do. We're gonna get into that. We're gonna definitely get into that. I want to dive into that. What's up, Box? Last name Contreras, first name Box, man. And by the way, Box, dog, get at me, homie, if you wanna. I heard you wanted to start your own thing, carnal. Okay, so hey, Tony. Again, for those that just jumped in, man, if you guys want to hear Tony's story, I will have it in the link in the comment section. So you guys go check out his story. He spoke about what happened to him as a child. But now we're gonna go ahead and talk about a couple of things. So I was doing some research, right? And I kind of covered this last month, but this time I kind of got a little bit deeper into this, right? I'm gonna go ahead and talk about, okay, so looking into RAINN, RAINN. They cover child sexual abuse. Okay, that is RAINN, RAINN. Okay, so basically they're asking what is sexual abuse, right? And we go through all the no does and stuff, right? Here's some obscene conversations, phone calls, text messages, or digital interaction with kids. Tony, I always kind of found it a little bit weird, man. And this is not for anybody that's on here. Okay, I don't know, but with video games today, you can interact with kids underage, right? And with the video games that there are today, I don't play video games, but I know how advanced the video games are where adults are playing these, and adults are playing them, there's adults get hooked on video games.
Yep.
And I've heard a couple of adults talking about like, oh yeah, you know what, we're playing and everything. And oh man, there was this 15-year-old kid, I was, smashing on them or whatever. We're playing, Halo or whatever it may be, right? And I always just kind of thought like, damn, I don't know if it's because what you and I have been through, Tony, but man, homie, I would not feel comfortable, if I were playing a video game. Now, I'm not saying those that do this should feel uncomfortable because you're not doing anything wrong, right? But I myself personally, I'd be like, oh man, like I'm playing a video game, and there's kids on here. It just, I don't know, man. It just wouldn't suit me right, but with this that they threw on here, like I said, there's all the other ones, right? Oh, parental discretion is advised. Por favor.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
There's all the, the fondling, obviously the intercourse, masturbation, and forcing minors to masturbate and all that stuff, sex trafficking. But the one that got me was the obscene conversations, phone calls, text messages, or digital interaction. And immediately I thought about video games. Okay. And I remember a while back, this is years ago, I remember the mother of my kids, right? Back when my kids were a little younger, they're all into the gaming.
Right.
I remember her calling me and telling me that my son was playing video games like pretty late, pretty late. Okay. And she walked in and she's all like, "You're still up? Like, man, turn this off." And that she heard what sounded like a grown male adult on the other side.
Yeah.
And that to me, man, that's just for me personally, like that's a no-no, man. Even though maybe he wasn't doing anything wrong. After that, we kind of had like a conversation with my son and everything. Like, hey, you know what, man? A, B, and C all the way through X, Y, and Z. Okay. You know what I mean? Don't, careful. All right. Just be careful. But that struck me, man. I'm thinking like, man, what kind of dude is over there playing video games at a late night? And I don't know where in the world he was. Maybe it wasn't late night where he was, right? But at the time, I think my son was probably like 14 years old, 15. Yeah. And I just kind of thought like, what kind of grown man is doing that?
Yeah.
But what's your take on it, Tony?
Well, so the first
games, you got youngsters and adults interacting like that.
Yeah, the first thought that came to my head, man, was when I was a freshman in college. There was a group of kids that went to the Christian colleges and had all groomed up and to go to a private Christian college. And I just got out of the joint like 2 years before that, so I always felt like an outcast. Like, I'm this broke Christian guy, but just trying to learn about get an education. And you got this crew of, but one of those guys in that crew of the goody to it, I consider them like just like what do you call that? Just had more opportunity than I did. One of them started texting the professor's daughter, who was like 13. All right, and the professor got wind of it, and this kid from the school ended up going to prison because he had I guess he had other folks that he was communicating. And this is just texting and phone calls, no video games. This is like still before the internet took over the world. This is like 2000, Okay. But his dad was a cop, So it felt like he got a very, very little minimum sentence for doing this. He was like trying to set up this scenario to make something happen with this teenage girl who had to be a professor's daughter. And so it reminded me of that a little bit, man, how like we got to talk to our kids, man. We got to constantly be pounding in, hey, there's a lot of weirdos out there. I'd rather fall on the caution of making them too overly stressed out over weirdos than being like, well, some people are just like, they're safe. It's just a computer, just a video game. No, man, that is Ed, your discernment might be our discernment might be a little bit higher because we were victims, right? We were targeted, right? So our
Right.
discernment might be on hyper steroid levels, But man, what? So what? It's like they're my kids. I wish my parents had been hyper steroid on me. I probably wouldn't have to go through that experience. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. As far as the video games is concerned, yeah, man. My daughters, they don't play the video games as much as they do the online, like cohorts, like groups of people come together and they make cartoons or drawing, and they're like groups of people, and they're like, I'm 12 years old, like I'm like, you're not 12 years old, that's a grown man right there. I just kind of always throw it out there, trying to be a little like throwing them off, like, I'm serious, man. Watch. Ask them, let's see, what was something 12 years ago? Ask them if they know about that. And they'll be like, what? Like, see, they're not 12 years old, man. They're like 35 years old. Anyway, so I try to pump a little fear in them. And I think that's important, man. I think we just got to constantly, no, don't leave it up to the schools. Don't leave it up to the city. Don't leave it up to your family members. You got to do it yourself. If you have that blessing of still keeping the mom and dad in that same room, the same house, then you have to reinforce all that stuff. You gotta make it sound like, hey man, this is some dangerous stuff on there. And then my wife and I, what we do is try to get the kids to have the computer screens facing where we can see what they're watching. They don't have no computers in their room. They do all in our living space area. You know what I mean? And they're still secretive because they try to make it sound like they don't want us to look at their projects. But that makes me more paranoid. So I just kind of reinforce the reason why we're looking at your screens, because we want to make sure that there's no predators out there trying to hurt you. And I even let them look at some movies and stuff. Be like, you see what I'm talking about? That person wasn't that person. You know what I mean? Just constantly got reinforcing it. So yeah, man. That is weird. I'm a pastor, so I engage with a lot of teenagers and a lot of my people's kids. But I try to do it in such a way, man, where they're not feeling like I'm trying to like get up on their kids. You know what I mean? Like I try to speak to them and keep it on the up and try to be like an uncle. But even that, with that said, I say don't trust anyone. And that is part of our part of me being being hurt when I was 5 years old, man. Is like it was from a relative, right? So I don't. So if you can't trust your familia, you know what I mean? Then, everyone outside of that circle is like, now you don't even got a chance in my house. It breaks my heart, though, because I have real good friends that always are like, hey, man, if you want, we can watch your kids for you. And everything in me is like, no. In spite of them being the coolest people, in spite of them being the most, having the same convictions we got, like, oh, no, they say the same thing to me probably, But it's just so weird like that, man. Like, it's weird to me when people trust me with their kids. Now, I thank God that it's cool, that I'm safe, but I do trip out. Like, man, you just let us hang out with all your kids all day long. You're like, we just need a break. So, like, the break is more important than the possibilities. But all that to say, yes, Ed, that is weird, man. Like, the internet is weird, completely weird. Video games, programs, PBS Kids.
Well, you know what? You know what, Tony? You are the Lord's firecracker, man. I will say that. So yeah, that when I saw that, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Today, man, with the gaming systems and all, you do have adults interacting with young kids. That can happen pretty often. And you know how you said, hey, man, there's a lot of weirdos out there. Even if there's not a lot of weirdos, it just takes one dude. I mean, one guy can, one male, one female can do a lot of damage, because a lot of the times it does not go reported, right? The person, the individual that did it to me, I never reported it. I don't know how far did that individual go. How many more people did they go on and do this to, right? So let me just go ahead and get to some physical signs. Again, some of these are kind of no duh, right? But there are a few on here that kind of got me. I'm like, oh man, I didn't know that, right? So again, some of these are kind of no duh, right? Okay, so physical signs: bleeding, bruisings, or swelling of genital area, bloody, torn, or stained underclothing,
Wow.
difficulty walking or sitting. This is the one, Tony, where I'm kind of like, I never made the correlation with this, man. I never connect frequent urinary or yeast infections.
Mm.
Um, I had no idea. I had no
Hmm.
idea till I was doing this research,
Mm.
right? Of like, hey, give me some physical signs of a child that has been sexually abused or
Mm.
is continually being sexually abused. Frequent urinary or yeast infection. I never made the correlation with that,
Wow.
man. I
Wow.
didn't. The other one is pain, itching, or burning of genital area. I don't know if that has to pertain with STD or if it just is because there's such a young age. I have no idea. But yeah, so for everybody watching, those are a couple of physical signs.
Mm. Mm.
Behavior signs, okay? Changes in hygiene, such as refusing to bathe or bathing excessively. So
Mm.
either they don't want to shower or they want to shower all the time, right?
Wow. Mhm.
Uh, develops phobias. So if they didn't have any phobias and now they got some sort of phobias,
Hmm.
there you go. Exhibits signs of depression or post traumatic stress disorder. Um, expresses suicidal thoughts. Has trouble in school, such as absence or drops in grades, inappropriate sexual knowledge or behaviors. This, I want to stop at this one right here. There's a few more, but I want to
Ooh.
get deep into this one, man. Okay. Which one was it? Shoot, I think I just lost it. Inappropriate sexual knowledge or behaviors. Okay.
Mm. Mhm.
Tony, I think you went through this too, brother. You and I have talked. Okay. The level of sexuality that rises, that
Mhm.
is high at a very young age,
Mhm.
at heck 9, 10 years old, man.
Mhm.
I was looking to smash and dash.
Mhm.
It's not, it's pretty normal for a boy at 10 years old to look at girls and get an erection and be like, oh
Mhm.
man, this and that and stuff like that. But to actually physically truly want to seek it, uh,
Mhm.
these are the things, man, the sexual arousal that goes on now because that seal has been broken, right? It your child's seal is now ripped apart, right? So
Right.
now you're kind of seeking this kind of stuff. I had brother Eli on here, and he was sexually molested by his dad
Yeah.
numerous of times.
Yeah.
And he came out and said that at some point he actually found his dad attractive.
Attractive. Yeah.
Being what that may be, everybody can hear that and be like, "Oh, that's sick, that's disgusting."
Mhm.
That's not on him.
Right.
That's not on him. He was a 3-year-old child, and his
Yeah.
dad started sexually molesting him. And now,
Yeah.
at some point, he found his dad sexually attractive.
Or not even, or they don't consider him they don't consider it a bad thing in it. So when someone
Right?
be like,
Yes.
hey,
Yes.
you were molested, like, no, I was. They're complete
Right.
denial about it because they love
Right.
them so much.
Right. And that happens as well. Usually a lot with girls, man. But yes, that does happen. So Tony, talk to me, man. You went through this too because my sexual levels went like up as a very young kid, and I was being
Right.
sexually active.
Yeah.
And the sad thing about it, and I know some people are gonna try to say like, oh man, that's pretty cool or freedom. No, no, it's not, man. I didn't want my sons having sex, at a
Yeah.
young age.
Little Wayne got some stories about him being a kid and getting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? The sad thing about it, Tony, is that there were girls that young, man, that were willing to be sexually active. So I can only imagine that they went through some sort of sexual molestation. But talk to us a little bit about that, Tony, on your
All
side,
right.
brother.
Well, so I was hurt as a 5-year-old, and
Mm.
I don't remember having any signs of bedwetting or anything like that.
That's
Like,
another sign, bedwetting.
but
But
I'd say
we'll get to that.
I definitely seemed like we talked about this too, about how I felt like I was a target, for young teenage girls, and I felt like something sexual about this 5-year-old kid. They wanted to like show me their boobs, or they wanted to get crazy, and I couldn't get an erection at that time as a 5-year-old, but I was down. Like I thought it was normal. Like okay, someone thought I was attractive. I didn't even connect the gayness of a boy doing that to me, but
Mm,
I did know that I was attracted to girls,
mm,
and I was down, and sometimes, but it grew to more to like, to where, yeah, man, I wanted to have sex with girls at a young age, at 8 or 9 years old. I was like really like constantly noticing. I remember the first time I ever saw a breast exposed to me was my stepmom, because she was feeding my little brother, and she just came off the boat from Mexico, and I didn't know her from nothing. And she's like, "This is your little brother," and she shows me my little brother, and I'm like, "Dang!" I didn't even see my brother. All I saw was her
mm.
aureolas. I remember thinking to myself, "That's my first breast experience." But anyway,
Right.
I still love her. She's my mom, man. I love that lady. She's still
Mhm.
around. But I'm just saying, like, that was like, I wasn't like, rather than seeing my beautiful little 1 month-year-old brother, all I remember is seeing breast. It was all
Mm.
about sexualizing everything I
Yes.
saw.
Yes.
So eventually, uh, um, yeah, man, I started
Yeah.
holding hands as a 9-year-old kid with girls. I started just trying to get those relationships going, man. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Man, I couldn't agree with you more, man. Everything was sexualizing. Everything was just the thoughts of just you know, basically, you know what? Basically, just
Mhm.
perverted thoughts, man. That was it. I mean, every time, just everything that what you were explaining right there, man. Everything was just always perverted thoughts, man. As a young boy, man, for me, and being sexually active that much, and it's like as soon as I've said this before, sex was had little to no meaning to me. It was
Mhm.
just that satisfaction at that moment. As soon
Mhm.
as that moment is over, hey, it's over, and
Mhm.
I don't care. I'm looking for a next one, right, or another
Yeah.
one, or
Mhm. Mhm.
whatever it may be. It was just nothing but perverted thoughts, man.
Yep. Mhm.
So let me go to the next one. Okay, nightmares or bedwetting. Let me see. Overly protective and concerned for siblings, or assuming a caretaker role. So basically, I mean, if somebody was sexually molested, if they have like a younger cousin, younger brother, whatever, they're probably like really overly protective of
Mhm.
them,
Mhm.
or what have you. Let me see. I think I lost my spot here. Returns with regressive behaviors such as thumb sucking,
Mhm.
run away from home or school, self harms. These are just kind of like no does now.
Mhm.
Uh,
Wow.
oh, here we go. Shrinks away or seems threatened by physical contact.
Mm.
Uh, I was always kind of weirded out. Um, by a lot of hugging and kissing, and my mom used to love to
Smother
hold
you.
kids. Yeah. Ay, mi hijo, mi patitas blancas, she would call me and stuff like that. I was always kind of weirded out by it. Let me see. Hey, Box, I mean, I got my guess here, brother. This isn't one of those lives, carnal. Maybe towards the end, I'll probably do that. Um, but I was always kind of weirded out by physical contact, especially by adults. Just
Mm.
give me a hug and a kiss, and it's just family members. It's just
Yeah.
family. Showing affection and love, just showing that they loved and they cared for me. Nothing, nothing weird or anything like that. And I remember having my boy Vince on here, and he shared his experience. And one thing that he said that I can relate to 100% was I I feel like off, man, when kids come and give me a hug. I'm like,
Mm.
okay, like get off me.
Mm. Mm.
I feel weird, and I do see um I do see other adults, uncles, aunts, older cousins, whatever, just,
Mhm,
get their nephews, their cousins and everything, kiss on the cheek and sit them on
mhm.
their lap and hug them and everything. I I can't do that,
Yeah,
Tony.
yeah,
I feel so weird, man. I'm like, no,
yeah.
like, dude, like, okay, cool, just a bam or cool with a handshake. Like, we're not
Mhm.
hugging, we're not kissing, we're not doing any of that. Tony, do you got any of that, carnal?
I used to. I mean,
Okay,
I'm 46 years old. I
right.
used to, man. I used to until I realized it's important for nurturing.
Yes, yes.
Even my own kids. I got three little girls. They're my girls, man.
Mhm.
My girls. I have to awkwardly make myself embrace them and hug them, and I feel like they're even more weirded out than I am. But
Man,
it's like almost like petting them, but no,
yeah.
man, no, I want them to know that they don't need to find that love and attention somewhere else, that dad and mom love them so much, and that
Mhm.
they're completely fulfilled, and they're loved, man. They're not, we are they're appreciated and loved. I don't know, but so the hugs and the kisses, all that is really awkward for me, and I think it made it. I mean, some of this stuff, guys, it's just personality stuff. It got nothing to do with anyone hurting you. There's some really healthy people that are weird.
Mhm.
Healthy people, like they haven't experienced that life. They've done well. They've kind of stayed on task on the narrow road, and they haven't been exposed to stuff. And they, but yeah, man. I remember, yeah, it was awkward for me. And then I wouldn't hold. I hadn't held a baby since until I had my own baby. I was like 30,
I
34 years old when I first had my first child, man. But I wasn't holding anyone's baby. I was that guy, like, hey, hold my baby. No, I'm good.
yeah,
I
yeah,
said I
yeah.
don't want to drop them, but
Baby.
in reality, I just didn't have that affection in me, man. I had the affection to get with women. You
Right.
know what I mean? But I had no other affection for any other type of human being. Like if there was not something I wanted from them, I wouldn't give them that. I respect them. But I wasn't interested. I was interested in the human woman's anatomy. That's all I was interested in. I get as close as you want, man. I can't breathe. I'm sorry, girl. I just want to smell your perfume.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, it was like that for a minute, and I'm starting to hug my nephews and nieces, and I'm starting to be very aware, but I'm trying to show people affection more, and I think it's just because I'm more comfortable with my own skin now. I'm more comfortable with my own reality, and that I'm not a monster. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I don't, and people need that affection, man. There's too much internet stuff where people just completely don't have any human contact. So I'm trying to be like, I feel like Jesus was hugging up on people and stuff. I think, so I'm like, well, I'm not, so with your, yes,
So,
not that long ago, I was awkwardly like not trying to touch anyone, but I think I've grown in a little bit better in that.
So I want to get to something that you just touched on right there. But before we do, let me just go ahead and say this. When you brought up your daughters, going back into my think tank of my own sons, I got two sons, right? The affection I showed them was not really hugs and everything. If I was gonna make contact with them, it was like a punch to the shoulder, or just like a noogie on top, that kind of stuff. It wasn't
Right.
like, come here, son, hug like that. That wasn't happening, Tony. And
Yeah.
I just, I,
Hey, it doesn't mean it can't happen, brother. You still got your kids, right? You act like you're Vejito, 87 years old. I'm gonna put my cane down. Come over here.
you know what, man? If I go and I hug my sons, they're gonna freak out. They're gonna be like, "What the hell are you doing, old man? Get the heck off of me! What the hell's going on? Are you dying or what's going on here, man?" They would freak out, man. Although I do, the handshake with the one arm hug, just real quick, nothing major, man. And I just like you, I don't hold babies or toddlers or anything like that. I just don't do any of that stuff. I don't feel comfortable. But something that you brought up, right? A lot of things have been thrown around, right? It's like, hey, man, how does this start, right? How do the predators start? And then people want to blame movies or pornography and or all kinds of stuff, right? And the thing is, I'm I'm sure that stuff doesn't help the situation. I'm sure it can add to it, but I don't think it's the main cause
Right.
because Tony, this was going on way back in the day, was it
Yeah.
not, Carnal? Can you
Yep.
talk
Yeah.
to us a little bit in the biblical days?
Well, in the Bible, the cool thing about the Bible is that it seems like it doesn't cover up a lot of scandal. There's a lot of scandal in the Bible, and I think that's kind of showing that God is saying, "Hey, you guys really need me," But there is a story and about a virgin named Tamar, and her brother had a crush on her. Now they weren't related by marriage; they're like step. From what I understand, they're a step. But King David had these kids, and the brother was like all infatuated with his new stepsister or whatever, and he raped her, man. She's a young, when you're a virgin back in those days, it seemed like they were getting married pretty young. So she was probably a teenager. She's probably 12 years old, whatever. And he raped her, man. And then the dad found out, the King David found out, and he got angry.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't do anything. He let it go. It's like, you know what? Just family drama. Just let it go. But I think that's like happening. That was 2,500 years ago. You know what I mean? And just let it go, man. Just sweep it under the rug. And all kinds of violence and all kinds of drama came from his decision of letting that go. Some even say he had some idea that his stepson had a crush on his stepdaughter or whatever, and he didn't do anything about it. He didn't step and say, hey, there's some weird stuff going on here, boy. He didn't knock that. His name was Amnon. You need to knock that weirdness out of your head. I'm not sending your sister to go help you out. You're acting weird right now. He didn't have the discernment or the foresight to like call it out. He was like, hey, teenagers, boys will be boys. Yeah, knock that off. But he didn't do any of that. He just like let it happen. And then the dude's cousin, Amnon's cousin is like, dude, you're gonna get with your sister? That's gross, man. He didn't say any of that. He's like, yeah, let's make a plan, man. Let's make a plan. So act like you're sick, and she'll come, and your dad will send her your way because she ain't going nowhere near you. So your dad will send her your way, and you'll be alone with her, and then he can get in there. And he's like, yeah. So it's like cousins, like, so it's like all this stuff, man. Look at bro. Our kids are going to be attacked no matter what we try. Our best defense is offense, right? We need to make sure, or not offense. Anyway, we need to make sure that we do everything we
Best
can.
defense is offense. Yeah.
Right. There you go. Defense is offense. We got to make sure that Thecholotrucker did everything he can to keep his boys safe. You know what I mean? Everything, and so that's what my 2 cents is, man. I know that my friends ain't pedophiles, but it's just my own personal, like, we're probably just gonna stay home tonight, or the kids are gonna go with us, I know, man. I know most of the people that I don't leave my kids with are harmless, but still, I ain't willing to take that risk. With that said, man, I know as a church, I used to minister to college students a lot, and I remember a college student. I was sharing my story, and I think maybe me being hurt as a child came up, and right away he's like, "Hey, man," and he talked about this prominent pastor's child woke him up, fondling him. So you got this popular pastor,
there we go,
teenage boy, and you got the trusted person and a trusted popular pastor in Arizona's. You would think he'd be trustworthy. The pastor wasn't the issue. It was his son that lived in the same house, teenage son, waking this kid up, fondling him. It's like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, go to sleep. And but he's like, but this Christian guy in college now, maybe 4 years later, he's like, dude, I just got weirded up by Christians after that. He put everyone in Christendom because of this influence in this one guy's homosexual, sexual, whatever. And so I hear stories, and here's the thing: that kid probably went through something. That teenage boy that did that to that other teen, and I don't know him enough. I can look him up on the internet, and I can see that he's possibly working at the church, you know, as an employee now, or whatever. He's getting groomed up, you know what I mean? But this guy was doing this as a teenager, you know. But
Hey, Tony,
I don't know the person personally or
uh,
the son, so I wouldn't be able to identify him. But the kid had the pastor had kids, and it could be one of these kids, and the guy didn't give me the details of the name or whatever. But with that said, I hear a lot of stories where people hurt people, or the pastor themselves. Check this out. This is not predator stuff, but I remember there was this pastor I went to school with, and when he asked me if I got in my wife's pee yet, like in her vagina, in an appropriate way. Did you get in that pee? The pastor, did you get in that pee yet? You know, like,
oh,
and
that's
I was like,
weird.
Going back. I got thrown back, and I'm like, no, man, we're not married, bro. Oh man, you're gonna get in it. And this is like a guy, it's like a popular guy, man, who's a preacher. And then and I felt like he was telling me stories about how, yeah, it was just, I'm just saying there are ministers out there that got stuff going on in secret, and there are ministers out there that are talking about it to guys like me who think that's normal. It's like, there's like some wicked stuff out there. So what I'm saying is, what was I saying? I was just saying, man, that in the biblical, yes, people have been hurting each other. People have been killing each other. People have been sexually doing stuff in the Bible to each other. It's just one of those things that it's unfortunately not uncommon. It felt like everyone in my family in the 70s and 60s was getting, even, I don't know, all the way back to the 50s and 40s were getting married when they were 14. Like everyone seemed to be getting married when they were 14. That seemed to be after they became a teenager, they became a target. Before the quinceañera, they're already a target, you know. And and I know that my own sister, you know, she was pregnant when she was 14. My mom, that cycle went on. So I don't know what it is, man. But
Tony, let me ask you a question. Hey, Bread of Life, I'm gonna get to your question. I like that. I do want to talk on that a little bit. But Joe here is asking the biblical story that you told. He's asking, never read or heard of that one before. Why do you think that is not really preached about? Like you said, Pastor David brought it up, but yeah, you don't really hear about that in churches. They never really tell that story. Is it because because of you think it's just people don't want to go to church and hear about sexual molestation in the Bible?
They don't, man. They don't. You know what I mean? What I found is a lot of shift to politics, but before politics, it was something else. You know what I mean? But it wasn't about sexual stuff because you know, it's a prevalent, man. We sweep it under the rug, man. We don't want to talk about that's the enemy trying to cause a foothold. You know, the Song of Solomon. I got turned on to the Song of Solomon by my wife because they were using all kinds of it was like Solomon was talking to his lady. I forget what her name was, but she was a black lady. And the reason why, you know, and he was like, man, let your raising cake satisfy all the days of my life. And like raising cakes. And then I think they're talking about breast. But, you know, there's like all sexual, but you'll never hear Song of Solomon preached.
Right.
You never hear Song of Solomon preached, man. And I remember goofing around with David, you know, a couple years ago. He's like, what book should we go on? I'm like, Song of Solomon, man. No one ever preaches on that. He kind of rolled his eyes at me. Anything else? But yeah, man, the Bible has all kinds of sexual stuff going on, man. Noah, all the way back to Noah, man. He's laying down drunk on the beach, butt naked. Just laid out on the beach, just having a good old time. You know what I mean? They lived. They survived the flood, you know, and his son is like, dang, dad's all butt naked, drunk on the beach, check his fool out. And the other brother's like, man, have some respect. And he grabbed like a blanket or whatever and kind of looked away and wouldn't look at his dad and covered him up. But there's like all kinds of nudity and all kinds of scandal in the Bible, man. You know, that's you don't need to go to these movies. You don't need to go in the movie theater, man, to get too far from the scandal, man. It's there, bro. But there's another scenario where the dude's like getting with this chick, and because he's like trying to get with this prostitute, And it's like it's that easy. Like, what was he like going to town to get some eggs and some milk? And she's a prostitute, and she's like, "Hey, come over." Like, yeah. We're gonna pick our groceries aside.
You know what? Just real quick on this, I do remember seeing some play at the church that I go to, and I don't know what verse it was. I don't know where it's at in the Bible, but in the play that they had, and I don't remember the names, they had the dad grabbing the daughter all drunk and throwing her in the room and him going into the room. And then the son asking the mom, like, hey, where's dad? And she's all like, oh, he's in there with your sister. And the son being all pissed off, saying, you know what happens, and that kind of struck me. I'm like, okay, I never hear this stuff being preached. I never hear these stories being preached. But let me go to what Bread of Life is asking right here. I always wondered why, when it comes out that an older woman is with a teenage boy, it's not considered as harmful or violent as a man with a teenage girl. Any thoughts on that, Cholo? Okay, obviously, then he talks about the teachers. There's been a lot of stories that has to do with that. What's up, Big Daddy Trip 619? I would say this. So with me, and I could kind of relate to this. So with me, the first 2 times it was males that did it to me, and the last time I was 9, and it was an older female. And I don't know if it's because previously it was with males, but the one with the female, to me, I was like, cool. I was, my mind at 9 years old, my mind, the just what we were talking about earlier, the sexual level that I was at, I was like, cool, I'm down with this. This is kind of what I wanted at that time, because that child seal had already been broken.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said it before. I'll go ahead. I'll say it again. I used to brag about that. I never once ever brought up the fact that I was sexually molested by males. Ever, never, until I came on here and started talking about it. But the fact that I had sex at 9 years old with an older girl, okay, this was a teenage girl. She was like 16, 17 years old. The fact that that happened, I used to brag about that, Holmes. Mm-hmm. When I was a teenager, in my 20s, even in my early to mid 30s, I used to brag about that. Like, hey, homie, you know what I mean? I was smashing, dog, when I was 9 years old with this one hyena. I used to brag about it. Looking back at it today, that's sick, homie, because you know what, dog? My sons at 9 years old, if some girl goes and starts diddling with them like that, nah, I'm not down with that, dog. Mm-hmm. I'm not cool with that. So, is there something wrong with it? Absolutely. Yeah. It's just, for me, I personally think, and I'm just guessing here, I just personally think, because, I've already had been molested a few times. I don't think I didn't see anything wrong with it, but I definitely can look at it today and be like, man, that is wrong. And I think these girls, there's something sick with them. And regardless, say anything that anybody wants to say, but you can turn that young boy into a monster. They don't stay kids forever. They grow up, they can become these predators. So let's not take it so lightly just because it's an older girl, messing with a young boy. It's like, oh, I guess it's not as bad. You know what I mean? It's not as bad. It's him penetrating her. Like, no, what you don't understand mentally.
Yeah.
What's going on? What she's doing to him? She's tearing that apart for that young child, for that young boy, even if he's 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. She's tearing him apart, and now his life is going to get screwed up. and you don't know what road that could lead him down. It could lead him down to where, he starts targeting young, you know,
Yeah,
young girls or whatever it may be. But
that's right.
let me see. Yes, women should be held same as men. Yeah. Tony, any thoughts on that?
Uh, well, I was just thinking,
Sex.
we mentioned this before, and we kind of talk about it, I think, probably every episode or every other episode, about the part of your brain that is triggered off when these things happen to you as a little kid. There's parts of your brain that are not supposed to be turned on, man, are not supposed to be ignited until you're old enough to process that. So when those things are turned on at a young age, yeah, we all parts of our brain that I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. Neither of us are psychologists. But in a counseling session, I heard that part of your brain that takes the drugs and the pleasure zone, all that is turned on too young. Even though I didn't enjoy my experience as a child, it hurt. As a 5-year-old kid, I was hurt. It hurt me. I'm not sure if your experience, if it was like if you had a euphoric, you know, if you had orgasm. I didn't have orgasm being molested. I was hurt and I was troubled. But I don't know if that changes the way your brain, the way you function after that experience. But I do know that it wasn't supposed to be turned on. So now everything seems sexual to me. You know what I mean? I want to see the dirty scenes of all the movies that that are, or I want to rewind them and watch them multiple times just to see, what I'm missing. Growing up, also, being pornography was around, so I was able to see pornography as an 8, 9-year-old kid. Just full blown
Right.
porn. So all that stuff is kind of compounding on my aggressive sexual behavior. Always wanted to score, always wanted to keep track. And I shared that story about keeping track of all my encounters. And my pastor told me, what's sicker, having sex with all these girls or you keeping track of it? Which is the most disturbing part of it. And so that's kind of where I started developing a better understanding of I don't need to turn my wife into a pretzel trying to experience all these different encounters sexually. I've learned to love my wife and appreciate her and enjoy her as a person, the beauty that she has, not just trying to like wham bam. I remember having a sexual encounter with a girl and she's like, sometimes I feel like you're trying to hurt me. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to hurt you, but I was aggressive though. Or sometimes when the girl gave me the thumbs up, let's do it. You know what I mean? She's like, hey, can I take my shirt off?
Oh, Tony, man.
Sorry, but I'm just saying, I was like trying to get the deal done. Because I don't know, next time I'm going to see you, I have to go. I got to go. My girlfriend's waiting. We got to get this over with.
Oh, Tony.
It was bad, man, but by God's grace.
No, I get it. Yeah.
By God's grace and mercy, I'm able to like be done with that life, and
we got a couple Joe, AC in here talking about when they were teenagers, they experienced it with older women and bragged about it. I didn't see anything wrong with it, but you know what, man, it really messes with your mind, dog. I'll tell you, I would not want my sons to experience that. That is childless. So now let me ask you this, Pastor Tony. You're a pastor. Guy comes up to you and says that he's a child molester, that's what he does. And he wants help. He wants forgiveness. What is one, Mr. Pastor Tony? How do you respond to that, man?
Well, first of all, I do have a hard heart towards people who hurt kids. Even but with that said, I can't go by my feelings. I gotta go by what the truth is, and the truth is these bodies, these thoughts, it's all gonna pass away. And the facts that if people believe that Jesus Christ died for them on the cross for their sins, all their sins, the worst gross sins, like I said, Osama bin Laden, pedophiles, the Wall Street crooks that take away people's life savings, the rapists, the serial killers, Jeffrey Dahmer, the all these guys, they're slave traders. They all can receive the free gift of eternal life. That's how big God's grace is. That's how some people be like, oh, no, I don't believe that. But that's just how big it is, man. How God's so they said Jeffrey Dahmer got baptized and became a Christian right before he got killed. All the serial killers, bro, look them up. They all had this experience with Jesus and before they got killed.
I
And
don't think Richard Ramirez did.
Oh no.
I don't think he did.
We don't know that. We don't know that. We weren't there.
I think he stood on his ground, man.
Richard Ramirez was in Richmond, California for a minute. But anyway, was I going to say no? You're right. But a lot of these guys, man, can come to, and the reality is there's a difference of what we do down here and our souls. Like Jesus will save our souls, man. Jesus was like, you know what? Oh man, I can't. Like, who wants to serve a God that forgives pedophiles? Well, he does, man. But he's like, this body of death, this sinful behavior that we have, it's all going to be taken away, and we're gonna be with Jesus, man. We're not going to have that count of women that we devoured, or our 9-year-old experience with that girl. We're not taking that with us, man. That is going to be left behind in this tomb we have that we're walking around with for the next 80 years or whatever. But what the Lord is about our soul. So this guy might have been hurt, man. Like Eli, he may have been molested by his dad all his life, and he just got twisted thoughts and thought he needed to get with this little girl. And it was like all messed up in the brain. It's like, I don't know. I don't understand how it all works, but I do know is God's mercy is enough. His forgiveness, his grace is enough to forgive that. So I would tell that person that. I would not let that person be around my kids, about 50 feet away from my kids. Like, look at, man, you want to come to church here? We need to make sure we got some rules, bro. And I got my eye on you. And don't be offended. This is just part of the consequence of you being a pedophile. Now, we got to watch you all the time. But yeah, that doesn't mean we can't love you. That doesn't mean we can't feed you. That doesn't mean God don't love you. That just means that we're going to have our eyes on you. But you're welcome here. But our eyes are on you, So that's what I would tell them, man. Like as nice as possibly you can. Because I've had to work with people that had a rape in their background or whatever. And a lot of times, man, they're super like humble, super like, beating their chest or making these mistakes. I didn't know she was 13, and I'm like, all right, man, and I give them the benefit of the doubt, but I got my eye on them, and it's always in my head, what I mean? We got to protect our families, so yes, God's grace is big enough for it. And yes, the consequence of them having that on their jacket, it needs to be addressed, so yeah.
Yes. I'm gonna agree with that. We always do the whole thing of like, hey man, they need to be killed, they need to be this, they need to be that, they need to be all this. And you know what? Look, I'm gonna be real, okay? I don't necessarily disagree with that, okay? However, it doesn't do anything to just come out and say things like that. It doesn't do anything. If anything, it makes them hide more in plain sight. By the way, how you doing, Mary Brown? And I don't really see a lot of help for predators. I'm not saying that maybe there is some predators that are seeking help. I got no idea, and I'm not coming on here and beating the drum and saying like, man, I feel so bad and sorry for them, but most of them probably went through some sort of molestation themselves, right? And I've came on here and I've said it, and I'm gonna say it again, because I don't know who could be watching. But if there is a predator out there, hey man, I will open the platform to you, not for you to come on here and talk about your fetishes and promote your fetishes, but to talk about what makes you tick that way. Or what made you tick that way? What makes you go down that route? That's why I'm asking if somebody came up to you as a pastor, and I asked this to Pastor David as well, and he said, hey, this is what I do. This is but I don't want this anymore. I just, I want forgiveness. That's why I was wondering, like, okay, because I'm gonna be real. Okay, look, man. Hey, I try to be as best as I possibly can every single day. You know what? When people ask me, hey, who are you or what are you? My answer is always, I'm a fighter. No, not a fighter like this. I'm a fighter because I fight to be a better person every day, right? I fight to be a better person than I was the day before. And I don't always win. Sometimes I lose and I lose miserably, man. Sometimes I lose one day, but I really lost like a whole few months and I need to make all that up. I don't always win. I win and I lose. But as long as the good Lord up above blesses me with another day, hey, Holmes, the fight continues, right? But I'm gonna be 100% here honest. Look, if you're a pedophile, man, just I don't want to know you in person. Here on the screen, we'll talk and everything, but I don't want to know you in person. I don't. God bless you, Pastor Tony. God bless Pastor David. I'm glad that you guys are available, and Eli as well. He's worked with some sexual predators, man, that want to change. And God bless you guys, man. I really admire that. I really do. I personally, on where I'm at right now, man, I do not want any of them around me physically. On here, we can have a nice, good discussion, conversation, and everything like that. But in person, no, I just please don't come up to me and say that you're struggling with that. Go to Pastor Tony. Email me and I'll send you to Pastor Tony.
Oh man, don't be saying me all these folks,
Pastor
man.
Tony.
My phone's blowing up right now.
No, I can't right now, man. I just
hey, I had a one of my favorite professors. He's like he was like a mega church pastor, but he shared how when he was a young minister, his son ran home saying, "Dad, the neighbor is trying to grab my stuff and try to touch me," and he said he's a pastor. He's a young pastor, German young pastor, without even thinking nothing about Jesus, nothing about nothing, not calling the cops. This is like the 70s, right? He just goes and gets a shotgun and he goes to the neighbor's house to kill him. Like he was gonna blow, like just instantly. The parentals, like he did like a Cain Velasquez on this guy, right? He wasn't caring. He's like servant of the Lord. He was thinking about God's grace, God's mercy. He wasn't thinking about the Bible. He was about to go blast this dude that was trying to touch his son, and he calmed himself down. He said, but there was an altercation, but nothing happened with the gun. I think he might have pointed at him a bunch of times and scared him, but he said in his heart he was ready to kill that guy. He was going to kill him. And he said, by God's grace, he didn't, because he would have gone to prison for it and all this stuff. And his whole ministry would have been disastered. So sometimes the enemy, sometimes it's a spiritual thing, Trucker. That's the thing, man. I mean, I know we're talking about physical stuff, but really it's a spiritual, demonic thing, man. Demonic stuff happens. The enemy, there's a spiritual thoughts that come in our heads or whatever, or it's the demonic people want to take our kids out. They want to make them think they're not really boys, they're not really girls, or it's a spiritual thing. It's not a political thing, man. It's a demonic stuff going on with the enemy who's like, okay, I can't mess with Trucker no more. He already got his stuff kind of lined up. He already knows better, so I'm gonna go after his kids, because the enemy's a coward. Spiritual enemy is a coward, and he tries to go for the weak. And that's why it's so important, man, to have the Lord in our lives, man. You can do all you can to protect your family, man, but really, man, you have to really ask God to give you discernment and how to see who the real enemies are. Mike Tyson said that sometimes the people that are the nicest to you are not your friends, and sometimes the people that don't treat you right are not your enemies. Or the people that treat you bad are not necessarily your enemies, and people that treat you good are not necessarily your friends. Sometimes the people that annoy us are sometimes the people we could trust the most, man. So
yeah, so tu Padre says some of them have volunteered to castrate themselves as last resort to eliminate their tendencies. Man, I'll tell you, that means there's something severely wrong with that individual, man. Tony, you're a bigger man than me because I would hurt that child. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just but I'm glad. Look, I'm really happy. I'm really glad that there is somebody that they can go to. You know,
yeah, yeah.
it may not be me. It may not be me, but I'm glad there is somebody because there's programs for people that have been abused, right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
But what about those that cause the abuse, the
Yeah, yeah.
predators? I would like there to be programs like, hey, you know what? Come to this program where we help you. How do they help them? That I don't know. I'm not an expert in any of that, but I would like there to be something like that out there,
Hmm.
yeah, and somebody left a comment on here that I wanted to touch on, but we're running against the clock. Tony, question: do you let pedophiles or child molesters in your church?
I would. I would, with restrictions.
Mhm.
Like, I would let them fellowship with us. The leaders, and very important that your church has leaders that know exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it, so that they can back you and they can have an extra set of eyes. We don't know, man. Like, look at, we used to be woman mongers.
Right.
We used to be, don't trust us with your daughter alone. You know what I mean? We she might not make it to her wedding night, a virgin. You have to hang out with me, you know. So but we changed now. I'm not out there trying to get with every chick that I talk to at the Taco Bell or whatever. Now I have my wife, man. I want to set an example for my kids so people can change. People can do better. People can say no more. My mind was all messed up. I made a huge mistake. I repented. No more. I'm gonna fight the good fight. I'm gonna be healthy. So I have to believe if God gave us a second chance of clearing our mind and doing the right thing, that He could do that for the worst of the worst. So that's where a
Yeah.
pastor's role is. We got to give people the benefit of the doubt. That doesn't mean we don't that we also got to ask for support to keep an eye on this brother and sister in the Lord. You know what I mean? It's a great thing to be part of a healthy church, man, where we love one another, we eat carne asada with one another, we help each other when I have a flat tire. We should treat everyone with decency, right? So
Right.
that's no matter what they've done. Now, I'm I'm worried about my own kids, their safety, and I'm trying to worry about other people's kids and their safety, man. But I have to look past that God can change people from being monsters to being good people. I have to believe that. That's the whole thing with the gospel, man. God can change people's lives and hearts. So I have to believe that. And sometimes there's a beautiful thing that comes out of that because the molester has value again. That's redemption, man. That's what God's about. The redemption of giving value back to something that had no value anymore. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Man, hey Tony, thank you so much for saying that, man. Because you're saying things that it just wouldn't cross my mind to say, carnal. But I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad there's people like you, Tony. I really am, brother. I truly mean that. So, quick announcement. We're 10 months in. We got 2 months left. So next month, the month of November, I'm not gonna have any guests on. Instead, you guys watching from the very beginning, I'm going to drop the link and I just want people just to come on and just give your thoughts. Give your thoughts. Maybe somebody that this happened to, maybe it happened to you, whatever it may be. But next month will be child molestation month number 11. We're getting towards the end of it, and I'm just gonna drop the link. Whoever wants to jump on, give your thoughts, whatever it may be. For the month of December, I got something else lined up for that, but I know some people were asking me to drop the link. I will be dropping the link. That's all I'll be doing for the next time we do this, which will be in November. And I'll advertise it in advance. I just won't sneak up and just not advertise. I'll advertise it probably like a week in advance. So, but with that, Pastor Tony, any last thoughts, Carnal? Any last words before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'd say that God can save us, man, from
Real
the
quick. Sorry. AC, if you could give the answer and give your last words with this. Tony, do you believe there are people that are
no,
beyond redemption? Okay.
I don't. 100% don't. They could be a serial killer. They could be Osama bin Laden. Now, that doesn't mean they don't have the consequences. They might still have to be fried in an electric chair. They still
Mm,
might lose their arm. In some countries, they still might lose their hand. You know what I mean, for stealing.
mm,
But I believe that what I do and what the Lord saves in our souls are not necessarily always correlate, man. I think that our souls are purchased, and this body right here will be buried and will eaten by worms. You know what I mean? And God will still save our soul, man. And there's no child molestation in heaven. There's no serial killers in heaven. Jesus Christ sometimes will allow people to die, man, but he'll save their soul. The Bible says sometimes he lets people die, but saves their souls. And I don't know how all that works. All I know is that I was a different soul when I went into the joint and when I got out. I wasn't the same. I was a changed man. All the consequences of being a felon state there, but I was a new person, and I think that God can do that with the worst of the worst. I think that doesn't mean that we trust them. That just means that God, man. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about it. So no, I don't think there's anyone on the planet that's unredeemable. I think everyone, God desires all to turn to Him, and trust in Him. But that doesn't mean we gotta trust them. They trust in Him, but that doesn't mean we gotta trust them. But we definitely should treat everyone with decency, no matter what they've done. I mean, everyone deserves. Well, not everyone deserves. I believe we should give people a second chance, whether they deserve it or not. We should give people a second chance because that just shows that we understand how wretched we are in ourselves. We don't have to be serial killers or sexual mongrelers to be bad people, man. There are a bunch of bad people out there that just turn the other way all day long, and that's evil. It's evil just to turn away from not doing something right. So,
mm.
but with that said, yeah, Jesus Christ, man, Jesus Christ has got me through my experience as a child, my regrets, hurting, be going through women, what I mean, treating them like a piece of meat, even being a Christian and still doing this, having sexual relationships with women, even as a believer, knowing that I shouldn't do it, and I still did it. What I mean, and God's grace is so merciful, and He's so merciful. And so I would tell anyone out there who's dealing with this, have been hurt, talk to it about someone who you trust. Not someone's going to bring it back at you or going to tell you it's your fault, but just someone that can look right in your eyes and say, Ed, I'm sorry that happened to you, man. I'm sorry that happened to you. Someone that can hear you, because that is the beginning of the healing process where you don't have to continue wondering why you're acting out. Why am I acting out? Why do I need to masturbate? My wife is enough. Why do I need to watch this stuff on the internet? Why am I attracted to? No, you can start saying to yourself, I don't need to do that. God has made me a new creation. I am satisfied. God has satisfied me. My family satisfied me. I'm not that person no more. I'm healed. So I would say that's what I would say. Like, talk about it. Talk about it. Don't let the things in secret keep you there. You have to heal. You have to talk about it. You got to get out of your denial and say, this happened to me. You don't have to spill all the beans on every single detail, but you have to start talking about it, because you're going to be stuck if you don't. So that's my 2 cents on that. And Jesus Christ is the answer. It'll make it complete, whether you talk about it or not, but it'll help.
Man, there you
Talking for the
hey,
Lord.
hey, there you heard it, man, from the Lord's firecracker right there, man. Tony, I want to thank you so much for coming on here, brother, again, and sharing your story. Or that, you already shared your story,
Yeah, yeah.
but getting into more depth of this situation, man. And it's always a pleasure talking to you, man. You bring people get at me. They're like, "Hey, Tony, he's cool, but he's a little crazy." I'm like, "Hey, man, that's him, man. That's Tony."
Sorry about that. Yeah, I am crazy.
Hey, no, don't apologize, God. No, don't apologize. That's what makes Tony Tony, man. You know what I mean? So, hey, Tony, again, gracias, brother, for coming on here. And I
Yeah,
do
man.
want to have you back in the month of December. I'm planning something for the end of covering child molestation every single month for this year. Again, for those watching next month for November, I will be dropping the link all from the entire show. So and I will advertise it and days in advance, you know, so I just won't sneak up like that. But gracias, Tony. I
All right, brother.
appreciate it, brother. Hey, gracias to everybody who tuned in, who's watching live or who's watching this afterwards. Listen, if this happened to you, talk about it, speak about it.
Yeah.
Let it be known, okay? Because this happens, okay? And it happened to somebody young. And if they hear you talking about it, you start making it normal. Not normal that child molestation is normal, but you start making it that talking about it is normal. So, hey, it happened to you. Good. Now it's easy to talk about it because we're talking about it now. Now it's a subject. Now it's out in the air. People are talking about it. And now it doesn't become one of these hush hush kind of things because it's been like that for a long time. Long time. And we're breaking that chain, Holmes. So with that, hey, gracias, familia. That is one, Mr. Pastor Tony. As always, live your life like you're on the road. Be aware of your surroundings and always keep it safe. This is blood makes you live. But loyalty makes you family. Until next time, this is the Thecholotrucker for the good Lord's firecracker. One, Mr. Pastor Tony. Over and out.